I'm going to talk about how I'm not going to learn Rust after all.
Why not?
Because I just don't want to deal with the fucking kernel crap. And honestly, I'm sitting there looking at Rust and it's like, no, don't want to do that. We're going to do the normal person thing and learn Python.
Why Python?
Because it's on Free Code Camp.
I don't know. I would recommend you learn Go.
That is an option because I do have Go installed on the system because Hugo needs it.
It has annoying aspect, but it is like really powerful language.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't have the significant white space stupidity.
All right. I have that recorded. We can use that for the pre-show.
Sure.
And now I'm going to say cue the music when there should be music. And we had a comment saying that, hey, there was no music in the YouTube video. So in the event that you're watching this episode, dear commenter, there's a reason why there's no music on the YouTube video. But there should be music in the RSS feed, which is our source of truth. Hey guys, welcome to No Tucks Allowed, where I'm going to sit here and learn how to go with my big wonderful host here, Bigpod.
Hello.
And we're going to have a lot of fun with a lot of Go puns because Bigpod is sitting here telling me that I should go ahead and learn how to program in Go, which I learned just a little bit of Go prior, so maybe I could pick up where I left off, because I learned how to make like a thing that calls on like all these wonderful C binaries to output the standard output for like my DWM setup, which I haven't touched in. How long has it been since I bought an Intel Arc card? It's been a while.
Since release of Intel Arc.
Yeah, pretty much. So that is my big plan with that. Now, obviously, Bigpod. Just to let you know, I am currently running a Silverblue system.
Nice.
Just base Silverblue, which is why I had the Fedora Flatpak repository enabled on my system, but I didn't have FlatHub enabled because there's been some news going around here lately about the Fedora Flatpak repository. I'm certain that you've heard a little bit of it, and a guest of the show, Brody Robertson, recently posted a video about this as well. Now, I've been like watching this from a distance for about the past month now, where there's currently a proposal for a Fedora workstation to deprioritize the Fedora Flatpak repository and prioritize FlatHub in the Gnome Software application. Now, as it stands, if you're using a Gnome distro and you install the Flatpak plugin for Gnome Software doesn't have a way for you to actually set priorities.
Yeah.
This stands in contrast to KDE Discover. So, KDE Discover lets you set package repository priority, and I think that's one feature that Gnome Software should probably have. Now, why is this proposal made? First of all, Bigpod, could you break down like the whole history of like why we even have Flatpak to begin with?
Flatpak, or what it was initially called XDG apps, is essentially a containerized platform for package delivery. Essentially, it's somewhat made to compete with your standard packages, but also to be an equivalent of what is on Android or iOS are stores, like your Google Play Store, your App Store for iOS, the one place to get your packages, the one program, no matter which distro you use. And that's why it's universal, can work on basically any distro. But unlike another universal package manager, the who also hated Snap, it has ability to have multiple repositories. In this case, one of those alternative repositories is the one that's problematic. That is Fedora FlatHub or Fedora Flatpak repository.
So, if we're going to be talking about like the history of Flatpak, we actually do have to talk about like the history of the Snap packages first, right, Bigpod? Yeah. Because technically Snap came first, and the original reasoning that Snap was published was because of these upstream software projects. Like we're going to be talking about these guys here shortly, but OBS Studio. So the way that traditional software packaging works on like Linux and even BSD systems is that the software developer makes a release of his software tool. We'll just use like Vim as an example. The team that's maintaining Vim nowadays, because I think it's more than one person rather than just Bran, because he's missing in our lives now. Rest in peace. But anyways, Vim makes a release. They put the announcement in like whatever system they use to notify everybody that they pushed out a release. So Vim makes a release. They push the notification that they've created this release to all the appropriate places of where they would normally come out with this announcement. Now, there's a couple ways that you as a user can get Vim. You can download the Vim source code, compile it yourself, and install it on your system, or you can have a package maintainer handle it for you. A distribution has this group of people called package maintainers. These are the people that basically make the software for your distro, and they in this case, there's a package maintainer for Vim because, well, just about every distro ships it. They see that release announcement, they pull in that source code to build the package for you, and then they deploy it. Now, basically every open source license says that they can make modifications to the package in some way or another. And this is where the issue lies.
Yes.
Because there are some distros that have like a very freedom-forward approach. These are like your GNU-centric distros, like your like your GNU Geeks, your
Parabola.
Parabola. What's a real popular one that's Debian-based? I can't remember the name of Triskel. Triskel. You have those distros. Now, they exist for a reason, and they proudly announce why they exist. So, it's understandable that they're going to take all of your binary blobs out of your package and still publish the package with all the free open source things that they're legally allowed to distribute under like even their own guidelines. And then you have other distros that are willing to step in the other direction a little bit. This is like your Fedoras. Like, they'll ship some binary blobs, but not a lot of binary blobs. And then you have your...
It's with Fedora and Co, it's more about legality than actually freedom.
It's more about legality than philosophy. And then you have your other distros that just don't care. This is like your Arch Linux, where the Arch team doesn't really care, or like and then you have the further end of the spectrum where you have like your Gentus, where it's just like, this isn't our problem, this is the user's problem. So obviously, when say we're packaging OBS Studio, which is a media streaming application, there is a chance that hardware acceleration that requires all these proprietary codecs might not be enabled in your system, as we can see with the Fedora Flatpak repository version, or the version that you see out of a lot of these more freedom forward distros that happen to ship OBS Studio, where it's like you only have software encoded because, I'm sorry, that's the only one that's open source. Now, this leads an issue from the end user, because the end user is going to let's say that I know that obviously if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to be talking from I'm talking from a very high level here, and that you're also a very technically minded person, so bear with me a moment, okay? So, let's just say that I'm your grandmother, and I install OBS Studio, because I want to, stream to Twitch because that's what the cool kids do these days, right, Bigpod?
Yeah.
So, I install OBS Studio. I get it kind of set up that how I think it would be presented. Like, I got my screen share going. I got my little camera working. It seems like it's picking up my microphone. I go into the settings. People tell me that I need to use hardware acceleration with OBS Studio. And I select, say, the option that says VA API H264. And then I hit the start recording button or the start streaming button. And it comes back saying that, hey, there's an encoder error here. Make sure that you have your driver installed.
Yeah.
What is like one of the first things do you expect? Well, in a more technically minded grandmother to do. Well, besides besides calling
Google.
grandson and having him fixing it, she's going to go to Google, right?
Yes.
She's going to type in OBS Studio driver issue,
Yes.
or something like that. And what's going to show up first? Is it going to be your distro, or is it going to be OBS Studio's GitHub page?
OBS Studio's GitHub page and OBS Studio's forum, and then maybe first distro, which might not even be your distro.
Now, Bigpod, you're a software developer. You've worked
Yes.
in package maintenance before.
Yes.
So, when you how often does a user report to OBS Studio versus the distro's package bug reporting?
A lot. It's
Right?
basically standard to go to the Downstream project and go to your distro, unless you're actually already in some way involved with that distro, whether that be in just in their community or anything more. If you're not, you're probably gonna go upstream because you're just a user. You go, it's the software. It's software that's the problem, not because you don't know that it could be the packaging that's the problem.
Yeah, it could be packaging that's the problem here. Now, when you're working on your project here, you see this bug report come in, and you're going to go investigating it. There's going to be a couple things that basically you kind of have to ask what's going on first. Like, first of all, is the driver installed?
Yeah.
Well, and then ideally, you just say talk to the package maintainer.
Yes.
Right. That's really what you should do first. Is talk to the package maintainer first before you start talking about the guy behind OBS Studio. Now, obviously, dear listener, you understand what the point that I'm trying to make here, and the solution to that Canonical came up with probably like 10 years ago at this point.
Actually, just a few months before Flatpak.
Well, yeah, just a few months before Flatpak. But, this was right around the time where Docker was really taking off as a thing. Yeah. And people were just like, why can't we have Docker but for desktop applications on our Linux distros? We need Docker for the desktop.
Yeah.
And it kind of just came around, and people kept asking for it, and Canonical is working on like this.
Canonical had a need because they were working on Ubuntu Mobile.
Yes,
so
and they
basically did good and necessary, and they came up with what were at the time called click apps, but then afterwards became snaps.
Yes. Now, this was a one true source of truth package that now the software developer can build against with all the dependencies that they ever need, and then they can distribute directly to the user, skipping the distro entirely. Our universal applications. Obviously, Canonical released Snap, and then Snap had some issues, and now we have Flatpak as an alternative. Even though AppImage is still technically the only one that really gets the containerization thing technically right, but there's still a lot of issues with the AppImage.
Why do you say that? Because I highly disagree.
So the big difference between AppImage and Flatpak is that Flatpak has more sandboxing than AppImage. AppImage,
yes,
directly answers the calls for the calls for that people had for the initial issue. However, Flatpak, the way Flatpak does it is very security forward, and we all know that at the end of the day, security is more of an inconvenience for the end user than a desired need, even though it actually is a need. That's why I said desired need. There's a difference. The user might not necessarily want, a sandbox, and you got to remember, every security feature that you put in front of a user, the more likely that they are to run into a roadblock. Now, this has been like an issue that even I have with Flatpaks, because there's no reason why I should have to install like a Flatpak of a random project that I'm just checking out, finding out that it technically doesn't function the way that's supposed to because somebody set the Flatpak permissions wrong.
Well, let's first talk about the problem of general packaging by distros, problem packaging by instead of packaging by maintainer, which is what Snaps and Flatpak should solve, or should have solved, shall we say. Problem is that when random people, which distro maintainers in this case are, is that they will do it how they like it, or how to best serve their needs, which can be antithetical to how the creator of the program wants it to be, which is a problem in our today's case.
Yeah.
And that's been a big problem for a while in all sorts of packaging. Anytime you hear about Arch Linux and Josh, you hear about OBS not having everything packaged in Arch packages.
I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of Arch packages like that. I just like to use OBS because it's like the most obvious example.
Yeah, and that's the problem, where the distro maintainer will do it their own way, but reality is that packages in every other context, in every other operating system, are packaged by the maintainer of the software. So why does Linux, like with everything else, have to be that special snowflake? Sorry, I'm saying that, but yes, it's true. Whether it be theming, whether it be packaging, we're always trying to be something special for no good reason. Why don't we let building the package, or making the package definition, and then building should happen on a random server somewhere, be done by the programmer or the group that made the package. They know the package the best, the program the best, and that's what is happening a lot of times with snaps. A lot of people nowadays will snap their own applications. And what is a trend with Flatpaks? The first party Flatpaks are a thing, official Flatpaks. But problem is that a distribution like Fedora, they try to do their own thing, and what they've done is kind of a giant failure, because it essentially goes on the exact opposite path of what OBS project is trying to accomplish with Flatpak. A single environment to run everywhere, and single build that runs everywhere.
Yeah. That said, I personally don't have an issue with how Fedora does things, because they cite a good logical reason as to why. Most of the time.
Please do tell.
Because Fedora wants to be a freedom forward distro. They want to expose free and open source software to as many people as they possibly can, and to an understandable extent. So what they have this philosophy, and it has led to some issues that people have, and that's why the RPM Fusion project exists.
Yeah.
That said, RPM Fusion has its own set of issues too.
Yeah, definitely. I don't use it if I don't have to.
Yeah. So now why does Fedora have their own Flatpak repository to exist? First of all, well, they have this project called Silverblue, and that came out, and
Yes.
Silverblue is Fedora's atomic desktop of choice.
Just to jump in, isn't Flatpak a thing because of GNOME trying to have an immutable system for testing, so they needed packages?
Well, you see, that could also be a reason.
That's why Flatpak in general, I believe, exists. I think it's the same creator or something.
Well,
I know
GNOME project,
OS3. I know OS3 exists because of GNOME OS. So
yeah,
and Flatpak OS3, the original OS3 creator, I believe, is the same guy who created Flatpak. Is the same guy who created GNOME OS, if I remember correctly. What's his name? Alexander Larson. I could be
I
wrong.
believe you're right. I'm not 100% certain because it's been a long time since Flatpaks have basically been around for a while, and honestly, who made him is kind of irrelevant to me.
Alexander Larson, yes.
Yeah. Now, so, anyways, Fedora has this repository enabled because they're shipping Silverblue, and when you install a Silverblue system or like any of these atomic distros directly from the Fedora website, so like the Sway Atomic or the KDE Atomic, or even Silverblue, which is the GNOME version. It's going to ship. It comes with Flatpaks pre-bundled because they're immutable systems where it's just like the core operating system itself is locked into that immutable file system, but that doesn't necessarily mean that like your calendar application also needs to be in that base image. It could be fine as a separate package. It's more that's more mutable or user adjustable. So that's why they ship it generally as a Flatpak these days. Now, and of course, it being Fedora, they have that philosophy that I mentioned. So of course they can't just ship with FlatHub enabled out of the box. You at least have to hit a button to turn it on. That's why they spun up the Fedora Flatpak repository. Well, of course, it's an official Fedora repository, so they got to use the official Fedora packaging philosophy with it too, which has led to the issues with OBS. Now,
but do you know how do they get those Flatpaks? The Fedora guys, how do they make those Flatpaks? Do you know?
Well, to my understanding, they just use the existing RPMs and just repackage them.
Yeah. Also, let me correct myself. Alexander Larson didn't create OS3. That came from its still current maintainer, Colin Walters,
who happens to have a Red Hat email address.
Yes, and who happens to be a really good person.
Yep.
And I'm very thankful for him for everything he's making. He's making my life a lot easier.
So, anyways, showing up here in the Fedora Flatpak SIG, as they call them, but special interest group.
Yep.
A person by the name of Joel Bethke. I apologize if I got your name wrong. I speak American. Anyways, he posted this wonderful issue that the unofficial OBS Studio Flatpak on Fedora's Flatpak repo is seemingly poorly packaged and broken. In fact, I've confirmed that it's broken.
Yeah.
This leads to users complaining upstream, thinking that they are served the official package because it's an OBS Studio and a Flatpak. OBS Studio has an official Flatpak. So he links to a couple issues here, and he puts in the kind request that the package be removed or made clear that it's a third-party package. It should not be Upstream's responsibility to ensure that the downstream packages are working correctly.
Yeah, that part I agree with them.
Yeah. So, this sits for about 3 weeks without any responses on the issue. So he comes back. Since it's clear that Fedora does not have any special or have any interest in a rational discussion at this point, and has decided to resort to name calling because there was a couple people bad mouthing OBS Studio over this. They now consider the Fedora Flatpak distribution of OBS Studio a hostile fork, and thus they are submitting a request to remove all branding, not limited to their name, their logo, or any additional intellectual property belonging to the OBS project. This is the name OBS Studio. Anything that says OBS on it. Anything that says Open Broadcasting Software on it, because that's what OBS stands for. So, and they say that they've got 7 days before they put in the official legal notice. So, Bigpod, Fedora might be getting sued.
Yeah.
And so I've got this linked in the show notes, so you can read through this thread yourself. I ask you ahead of time, don't hop into the issue tracker and bringing up like any issues. Don't result in name calling. Just if you're going to partake in that conversation, be civil, right?
And be technical. Very important.
Be civil, be technical, give solid reasoning as to what you're asking anybody here to do, like whether it be OBS just not caring because the GNU license says that Fedora can do that, can do whatever they want with the OBS Studio source code.
Yes.
Not necessarily the name, but the source code. Or you could hop in there like a couple of commenters that I see here that just say, hey, this Flatpak should just be removed, or the Fedora Flatpak repository should be disabled entirely. Now, obviously, in the initial discussion about a month ago, Neil Gampa made a proposal, right? Maybe Gnome Software should just allow you to change the priorities of the repositories yourself, just like KDE Discover does.
Yeah.
Or maybe when you enable FlatHub on your system, it's just the default. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Rather than just straight up removing the project, because there's a lot of applications on FlatHub. There's a lot of applications that probably shouldn't be on FlatHub that are on FlatHub, and there's a lot of applications on FlatHub that are either poorly packaged or just don't actually work. Not to say that's every package, but there's 23,000 applications on there.
Well, my opinion is that distribution should get out of the business of making packages altogether, outside of maybe the core 100 packages they need for it to run, like Flatpak, like base libraries and kernel and stuff like that. Nothing else should be packaged by distros, and even that, if there was a good delivery mechanism outside of the distro, should be handled by that instead of the distro itself. But again, that's my opinion as a packager and a programmer. What do you think?
Well, I think with what this Gnome maintainer says in one of these threads here, where Gnome Software might one day remove the RPM support, they're heading that direction. But the way that I see it, the traditional Linux model, as I'm going to call it, of where use sudo apt install something, or sudo dnf install something, or whatever distro package manager you use, that's probably going to exist forever.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. Now, and I support like the idea of Flatpak, like I have a on my laptop a very minimal distribution install of Gentoo, because that's just what I do. But everything on top of it, including the graphical session itself, is running as a Flatpak. Because I went down the rabbit hole of figuring out how to get Sway running out of Flatpak, and it was not easy, and it is incredibly janky, and there are still some things on it that just don't work.
Well, graphical session is one of those things I would call system level.
Yeah.
But that's the catch. System level things are things that really should be updated separately compared to applications. It's what Windows does, it's what Android does, it's what I believe iOS does as well, I believe macOS does it as well. It is like, again, Linux has to be that special snowflake.
Yep. Well, our installer sizes are significantly smaller than the other options. Like, I think like the largest installer that I find is Ubuntu's, which is like 3.5 gigs.
No.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
I have to download
Debian, you
more
can still
gigabytes.
burn the net installer of Debian to a CD and boot off of that to install Debian.
Oh no! Oh no! If I want to install Windows, I have to download 3 more gigabytes. Oh, what I'm gonna do when I have a 64 gigabyte USB drive?
Right.
And most people have like 16 gigabyte USB drives. Come on, let's be real here.
I'm just trying to find an excuse, okay? Because I used to have DSL internet. Like, it would take forever to download, like, say, Red Hat's installer ISO.
I had DSL too, and I had to wait for a long time to download Rocky Linux ISO because for some reason it doesn't download fast. But guess what? You wait a bit. Who cares?
Yeah, you just wait a little bit longer. Like open it, put it up in like a TMUX session, go cook yourself dinner while it's downloading or something. Just like the good old days, right?
Yeah.
So
I time.
I think we're kind of done beating on this subject here a little bit, Bigpod. So I think it's finally time that we talk about something that all these other tech news and tech bros are talking about these days, and that have been beating on this issue for about the past year now. And honestly, it's the only news that I'm able to find because I really don't want to talk about the U.S. politics.
Yeah.
So let's talk about artificial intelligence, Bigpod. I'm sure you're excited about this because I know you're a big fan of the ChatGPT. You're like the biggest user. You're shilling ChatGPT everywhere. You're even using it to generate scripts for the YouTube videos you're not publishing.
First, let's make it clear. What we're talking about is machine learning and transformer models. Artificial intelligence is just a fancy name for a whole group of technologies. And as someone said, as soon as technology gets mature and actually starts working, it gets a boring name. That's what machine learning is. That's what transformer models are. Artificial intelligence does sound a lot cooler.
It sure does.
Artificial intelligence is machine vision. It's analytical stuff. It's generated text. What we're talking about now, the ChatGPT stuff. Yet it's all branded as AI.
Yeah, that said, we have discussed AI on the show before, but we never really we don't really talk about it every single episode. In fact, I actively try to avoid talking about AI because AI is just everywhere else. I'm trying to give you, the listener, a break from AI because sometimes you want to listen to your tech news and you're getting tired of hearing about ChatGPT, DeepSeek, or whatever new model Gemini
Claude,
Google just released.
Gemini 2,
yeah,
so on.
No, instead you want to listen. If you're going to be listening to AI, you want to listen to Josh and Bigpod joke about an AI girlfriend that we just randomly hosted. What episode was that? Like episode 7 or 8, somewhere around there.
Something to that number.
It was a much earlier episode. Instead, and sometimes you just don't even want to listen to that either. So it's just like, okay, so I make a commitment to try not to talk about artificial intelligence. It's not that I'm anti-AI. There are some uses for AI I'm particularly not a big fan of. Like the AI art where it's obviously stealing something, or say like an AI artist, which is a person that generates a bunch of different AI arts and then eventually publishes it and calls it their masterpiece.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're just getting real fancy with text prompts. You're not necessarily an artist. At least not in the traditional sense. So, I do have some issues with it, but I have also made use of AI myself because I am a Dungeons and Dragons player. So, sometimes you just run out of like the creative juices, and you need to bounce some ideas off of things, and you can't necessarily bounce the ideas off of your players because, well, you're the dungeon master. It's your job to come up with this stuff to begin with. So, I find, bouncing ideas off of whatever AI model I feel like using every now and then, helps me like figure out like what the heck I'm planning to throw at players next. Because if I'm left to myself and entirely to myself, sometimes it's just like, here's the new human guard of the day. And and I've also used it to like help me like figure out how to explain things too, because I'm sure that you've heard me struggle to explain things on this show.
Yeah.
And Bigpod's had to step in, or even Bigpod can't explain it. Like whenever we talk about kernel news. So, I'm not necessarily anti-AI, but I think we're getting too much AI these days.
Yeah.
Like everywhere I look, it's artificial intelligence did this, artificial intelligence did that, and we're kind of at the point now where we have companies that are like screaming that their product is an AI when in fact really they weren't. They were calling that same product just software not even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh boy, Google search is now AI driven. It's been algorithmically driven. It's not necessarily AI.
And it's very likely been AI driven for a very long time.
Oh no, Home Assistant is AI driven. It's all just algorithms at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's basically glorified if statements. If this, then do that. That's more or less what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, I think we've exhausted generally our topics on the show here at Bigpod. So, I have a question for you.
Yeah. Ask.
Do you, or do you not, still have Windows on your computer?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Because I tried installing Windows, and I actually installed, and I figured out how to break Windows in a hurry.
Really?
Yes. It's called opening up the registry editor to try to see if we can force move the taskbar to the top of the screen, because Windows 11 doesn't let you put it there by default anymore. Because bars belong on top. I'm going to fight you until the end of the day on this. Well, anyways, if you would like to send an email and tell me that I am right or wrong, send us an email to contact@tuckspace.com. I've been talking with, a person on there lately, trying to get us to set up SEO optimizations for YouTube a little bit here. I gave him a bit of an ultimatum today. He has yet to respond to it because, I think he might be a scammer. I don't want to talk to scammers. Let me talk to like a real person, like. Send me like your favorite recipe involving baked beans. Let's do that. If you would like to talk with each other, we have a Discord. We have that linked in the description of if you're watching on YouTube. It's in the show notes if you're listening to it everywhere else. And of course, if you'd like to support the production of this show, you can go to patreon.com/NoTucksAllowed. And you can also find most of the relevant links from Talkspace.com because, it's great to have a front page on our website finally.
Yeah.
It really is. And, of course, if you'd like to shout at us individually, we have these wonderful links right here. These are our federated IDs, so like your Mastodons, your Threads. And, I've heard Blue Sky might be doing some ActivityPub integrations, but they might not be as well. We'll find out. We'll find out as we go. And I know that Noster has already came out and said they're not going to enable ActivityPub, which makes me a little bit sad. But that's our social media platforms of use. We also have our own YouTube channels. We've got youtube.com/@10leej, which I'm going to be posting videos again when I can actually remember how to make a video. And Bigpod, you also have your own YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Bigpod. And I'm certain that he's got a video or two that he's just waiting to hit upload on. And I think that's going to wrap it up for this show here. It's a bit of a shorter episode, sorry, but sometimes that just happens.
Probably won't be that short.
That is true. It might not be that short. In the meantime, Bigpod's going to sing us a beautiful serenade while we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
That was a beautiful serenade, sir.